Greetings and welcome back to another Perspectives. And on this one, I'm continuing the theme that I started previously about the idea of the open and closed systems and the nature of containment, and to look at how there's a containment against the phase shift. Because uh, in systems theory, there's a phase transition when the whole system goes into a rearrangement, and that's a very important time. Now, I'd like to open this perspectives by looking at some response that I got from a viewer who I shall just go by the name of M. And this viewer M, who's often comments on my talks and perspectives and very perceptively, threw a couple of questions at me, which I thought I would that were worthy to address. And so I open this perspective by going to these observations and questions. So M sent me a question and said, if we are talking about systems, it seems to me that any closed system would work like a pressure cooker, and with no release valve, it would explode. Maybe some are allowed to escape, or maybe one continues to make systems within systems, letting the outer one explode while the new skin emerges and contains a system again. This is perhaps what we are seeing now. It's also possible that system organically forms a skin in order to preserve their stability. And what we are seeing on planet Earth is the substitution of an organic skin by an inorganic one. When did this takeover start, and by whom or what? Now, I think that's a perceptive point, because the closed system, as I mentioned in the last perspectives, it needs to reach a point of criticality where it either breaks through or break down. But as I mentioned, there's this kind of globalizing project, which I called global gridlock, to create a kind of containment of the Earth, completely kind of controlled, monitored, and managed, a kind of artificial management. And it's a kind of totalizing closed system. And this is, of course, becomes increasingly artificial. And the more closed it becomes, the more it reaches a peak of artificiality. And the more it's closed, then there's the greater potential that the less abilities to contact any impulses, any influences from outside the system, such as to source impulse, or anything outside of the system. And so the idea that this has to be managed, because there's the possibility of it exploding like a pressure cooker. And it almost feels like that now. In fact, the pressure cooker is being released through certain acts of aggression and violence. And, even a lot of people are manifesting kind of extreme behavior. It's as if this kind of points of pressure is being released at certain points across the planet, because what's happening is not natural. And this idea of that they're trying to replace a kind of skin across the planet like a system. You place it with organic skin by an inorganic one. Again, I think that's a fair point, because I've talked about the terraforming of planet Earth and how the technological infrastructure is creating the new membrane across the planet. And so, I mean, humans have at certain kind of perspectives have been seen as a kind of membrane across the planet, a membrane of consciousness. And humans have been referred to as the skin of the planet. And it's important also that not only are humans a kind of consciousness layer across the planet, but that we move around. And from time immemorial, once humans left their kind of tribal gatherings and once they started to grow in numbers, then they're always on the move for various reasons, whether for survival reasons. And now, of course, in the modern age, there's a lot of mobility. And of course, moving around the planet is a way of kind of spreading energy or moving between energetic points on the planet. such as pilgrimages that were set up along religious terms. You had a lot of people moving from one part of the planet to certain destinations, and they, as if taking energy from one place to another place. And of course, we know a lot of these pilgrimage sites are places of great energy and energetic hotspots. Um, there's no accident why they've been chosen as a pilgrim site. And when you've got a lot of people moving along certain lines, pilgrim routes, it's like energy moving around the network of a system. That we could refer to that as the earth grid or the ley line grid, the energy lines. There's always been a lot of movement along certain lines or threads. And so that movement helps to spread the energy around the earth's body. And it's part of this open system, which is very natural. Now, plants don't really move in that way. Not rooted plants. They may send seeds, but rooted plants, no. Animals roam, but maybe not in the same conscious, intentional way. But humans, like as acting as receivers and transmitters, are able to always move around, and whether consciously or not, to transmit or take certain energy between points on the planet. But of course, in a closed system, that's been shut down, whether it's through global lockdowns, whether it's through the coming 15-minute cities, or whether it's going to be vastly reduced and limited mobility through carbon credits and the increasingly difficult way to move around the planet because of needing certain visas or certain digital ID to move around the planet. That's been closed down, and it's very artificial. In fact, the containment of this movement of the human system within an open system is a natural law. It's a universal law of movement. If you close that down, it becomes very artificial and very anti-life. So it's a kind of top-down calculation which strips people of their liberty, free will, and even maybe their purpose. And so it's this vocabulary of kind of like optimization, always trying to be precise and calculate everything, which takes out the kind of the sacred organic self-organizing systems way of life. And so, in this open system of life, you have the predominance of carbon, because carbon is a gas that is needed for life, and we are carbon bipedal beings, of course. And the contrary to that, the anti-life version of that, is the carbon net zero. Take out all this kind of the gas of life out of the system, and then to kind of close it off. And we have the natural ecosystem as opposed to the anti-life digital ecosystem. And we have life as being messy, uncertain, unpredictable, dirty in ways. And then, the opposite, the anti-life of that, is the clinical controlled. And so we can see these two systems being, there's an attempt to kind of impose the anti-life system, which is closed and has no way of release or does not allow for phase transitions into a new arrangement, is being superimposed onto the life natural order system. So, and then M has a second observation. They noted that if you look at the alchemical picture, and the picture which I showed in the last episode is this picture, it's very curious for a couple of reasons. A, the alchemist looks out onto Enoch's whirling machines, a type of cosmic technology, and other systems that look like suns. And B, they sit within a cloud or sky environment, which seems an awful lot like a much larger system. C, so let us extrapolate from this bubbles within bubbles. And it has a very constrained feeling to it, as if one is looking solely at the larger material universe from one's bubble, and that one is still within the material universe. So It does seem, yes, that the alchemist in that well-known engraving is looking out from one reality construct into another. But the other one, it does show these kind of wheels as if, which have been very similar to that referred to as Enoch's chariot. And also these kind of suns, it's very much as if designating cosmic technology, which may be suggesting that there is cosmic technology involved in the phase transition from our reality construct into the alternate or the other or the next or the higher reality construct. And it also shows that it is very constrained, as if humans exist or are trapped within certain dimensions, and i.e. right now a lower dimension. And so moving from one dimension to another is trying to utilize technologies, cosmic technologies, not material technologies, in order to perceive and perhaps be able to then also move between one dimension to another. It's a phase transition. And so as the drawing shows, suns, which are stars, planets, nebulae, galaxies, they're all a part of this cosmic technology. And I think that's a knowledge which has been utilized from ages past and which has largely been lost, although there are, of course, there are disciplines which understand the cosmic technology of deep astrology. But it's a system within a system still. And it's also like the Russian doll analogy. You take off one Russian doll, you have another inside, take it off, another inside. The question is, what are the exits from this dimensional containment? Perhaps the first step of liberation from this containment is to be able to liberate ourselves from our levels of conditioning, especially the deep conditioning within this current reality bubble or reality construct. Yep, perhaps the most insidious element is not the machinery itself, it's the techno-religious belief system that infuses our technology, or which again is being imposed upon it. There's this kind of religiosity, cultish behavior around this development of advanced AI and technology. But I think the bottom line is that our existential enemies are the ideas and the beliefs we project onto these creations. There's a quote from Joe Allen, and Joe Allen says, I quote, "The ongoing war for humanity is a battle of wills. It's their word against ours, so to speak. This battle of wills is playing out within a technological system, or rather an interlocking system of technological systems. This biomechanical beast is a layered grid of will, technique, technology, and automation." So yes, it's a it's a battle of wills, or these interlocking systems within systems. And I think will is an important word there, because the long arc of human history has always been about this kind of externalization of human will. And we've been putting our will, and people have been battling their wills to create their place in the world. But what seems to be happening now through all this external narratives is that a lot of these techie folks or the transhumanist domain, they're putting the idea of human will and intention onto the AI itself by saying the AI will want to do this, the AI will want to destroy humanity or develop itself or escape from its box, etc. They're putting the idea of will onto this machinic creation. And that's a substitution of what is an inherently human quality. And I think this is a kind of strategy or technique to transfer from one skin of the planet to the next is also to transfer the idea of will, which is central to any kind of development, human development especially. So again, this idea of replacing or substituting the human realm or natural realm with a new skin, and again also to create it as a god, to become the new god. Now, you mentioned the word the machine. Now, the idea of the machine is a long idea. It hasn't just come about with modern technology. I would suggest any interested person to look at the work of Lewis Mumford, The Pentagon of Power. And Mumford has talked about the great history in the progression of this mega machine. Early civilizations, even the Egyptians, the way that they formed their society, it was very much trying to, although they didn't have silicon technology, they tried to put humans into this mega machine of civilization. And from that, you have this social ordering, which is like the fleshy machine. And this social ordering has now been transferred to a technological means of social ordering. So the machine is being transferred from a carbon one to a silicon one. And again, another commentator on this, very well known, is Jacques Ellul, who also has a religious background and himself. He's, I think, in around 1964, his great work came out, The Technological Society. So, about 50 years ago now, we have this, or actually more than 50 years, this great work, A Technological Society, which I used Jacques Ellul's work in a previous book of mine from 2012 called The Struggle for Your Mind. And Jacques Ellul looked at how the unprecedented system of monitoring and control is being rolled out, and most people are either unaware or unprepared for what's happening. And it's no conspiracy theory. As Jacques Ellul explained, it's not a conspiracy theory this rollout, it's the logic of the machine, a logic which he referred to as technique, and that the inevitability of this logic of the machine is to become a total or totalizing system that encompasses everything. Only that this now may align with certain intentions from certain people on this planet to increase their power structure by furthering and advancing this totalizing structure. So there's a kind of inherent directionality inbuilt into this technology. So in that sense, I feel that what I've talked about in the last couple of perspectives, I would put down to what I call the stage of alertness, in that we need to be alert of the changing forms of the environment around us and the reality construct around us, to be aware of these external situations and conditions of which we exist. And then the second part of that is to move to a state of preparation, whereby we can cultivate some inner grounding and inner certitude to be able to navigate better our way within the world that is going through these points of criticality within the systems. And we're in this kind of critical zone whereby there are some forces which are trying to push us into a state of containment, so a phased transition to a new human order of human potential and human evolvement and development doesn't happen. In fact, it just gets curtailed, and then everything gets contained and stagnated, which is anti-human. And I feel there are other forces, both outside of our system and within it, which are trying to push for this phase transition, a kind of dimensional phase transition, where we can actually push through this state of criticality and containment to get into a new rearrangement. a new frequency, a new synchronization with a new resonant frequency. So, but of course, to be in a state of preparation means that before we start running outside of ourselves, trying to change the world and impose ourselves, we need to first sort out this resettling and rearrangement within ourselves. And we have to realize again that, often it's the beliefs we impose on the world that become our existential enemies. We live in a kind of fictionalism, a fictionalism that we've imposed and which also gets imposed upon us. So instead of trying to make a contact with an inner resonance of truth, we get involved in these stories, in these fictions. And I'd like to just finish this chat by going back to a quote from the Gospel of Matthew. I think it's a very relevant one, where Jesus says, "Do not fear those who can kill the body, but not soul. Rather be afraid of him who can destroy both soul and body in the life after death." So, in the state of preparation, it's taking care of our soul, taking care of the inner state of being grounded and synchronized with those impulses that give us nourishment and which cultivate our inner life and makes us better human beings, rather than being too running out there and engaging with this anti-human system of containment. So a few words there. And as always, thank you for listening and for bearing with me. Stay well, stay healthy, stay grounded. Until next time. Cheers.